Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell, joined by my co-host Mikey Davison. Mikey D, mate, you and I have been like ships in the night the last few weeks. It's good to be back on with my buddy from Down Under. How you going?
Yeah, am I in the right room? Is this the right place to be? This feels quite strange, doesn't it? We're both on Steelers Touchdown Under. I think the past 2 weeks we've missed each other, right?
It's three. So you missed last week. Then I was off with my back injury the week before. And then the week before that, I think you had something. So yeah, this is the first time in almost a month we've spoken.
I'm out there trying to be pickleball champion for New South Wales. That's what I'm trying to be, mate. I'm out there.
Mate, I'm just trying to be able to walk properly. Funny. So you turn 30, and all goes downhill, from there, right? So
yeah. It does feel weird, but you know what feels weirder?
What is that?
The QB speculation is madness. Now, I get involved in it too, but it is absolutely stressing me out. It is really stressing me out.
Well, let's start off there then, and then we can get into the topic of the show today. So Deshaun Watson. All right, I want the short answer, and then I'm happy to have the long answer. If you were the GM, put aside how many draft picks it takes, how many cap picks it takes, all the rest of that. Cap picks, draft picks, and cap numbers. Do you bring him in? If you had your choice, would you bring him in?
Bring him in. 110%.
Okay, and then the long answer.
Oh, that is my long answer.
No, it's fair enough. If you just
no. Okay, look, if you were to bring in, we all know he's going through stuff with the legal stuff, and I always try to say I always remove myself from that situation because I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not part of that. What is happening? So I don't want to push too many things. However, I think he got out of a few charges. He wasn't getting charges, and he may have a chance to come back to the league. Now, I want to focus more on a football player. If you were to get Deshaun Watson as a football player, it is an instant win. And yes, we would lose a lot of draft picks, and it would, maybe hurt the Steelers for the next few years. However, you've got a franchise guy who's 26 years old, and he's going to start playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, handing the ball to Najee. If we keep Juju, he's gonna sling the ball to Juju. I think he would overall improve the team, and I'm okay with Mason really being the start of this year, and he may win 7 to 8 games, right? So what is the difference bringing in Watson if you lose all those draft picks, and he may also win 7 to 8 games? However, you've got a franchise quarterback, and I think a lot of times too, with all this kind of stuff, right? Pittsburgh Steelers fans since 2004, we've never been in the situation where we've had Big Ben forever, and we always sat back and laughed at other teams like worrying and scurrying around going, oh, who are we going to get? What's going to happen, right? And now finally we're in that position, and every single QB gets linked to us. You could name 10 QBs, right, getting linked to us. And it's like, oh, do we jump on the hype train? Do we not jump on the hype train? But if Deshaun Watson were to play for the Steelers, instantly the fans who are saying, oh, we don't want him, would be open arms because he's a franchise quarterback. And he's a big player that can win us a Super Bowl.
Does any of this though weigh into that, everything we went through with Ben and all this off-field stuff though? Do you think? I don't know. For me, I struggle with that one because I don't think we want to have all that distraction. I think the Steelers mean business, and I think we talk about losing some draft picks there, but who is going to stand in front of Deshaun Watson? And I'd have to pull up his Deshaun Watson's deal, but how many years is he going to have left? Is he going to want more money? And I know, and I get that they don't grow on trees. I totally get that, they don't do that. But, and I'm not saying that Mason Rudolph for a second is Terry Bradshaw. He's not. He's a 1 year, and really most of us don't want him there for the 1 year anyway. But the thing for me is that there are plenty of quarterbacks that we don't all love, or we don't think that are that great that still do pretty decently. It's funny. A lot of people are sitting there. We all bag Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm one of them. I don't want him near this franchise, but he's gone further than a lot of other quarterbacks that have a lot of hype and stuff. And so for me, I don't know, this off-field stuff, I don't know whether you can back up everything that we had with Ben, with then Deshaun Watson. And, you know, the other thing for me is that when we think about Brian Flores and all these and everything going on off field, and you know his stuff is very legitimate. Like, how much distraction can you possibly bring in? I mean, I don't think they're going to bring them in, but if I had the choice, I would go after. There'd be other guys I'd go after. Like, I would prefer them. I prefer them, right? If let's say it takes you two first round draft picks and a second round and a player, right? It probably costs you more to get Deshaun Watson. I'd rather them throw in another year pick and go get Herbert from the Chargers. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, I'm like, yeah, I get that he's, you know, franchise quarterbacks don't grow on trees, but also he's got to be able to stay on the. Now, one would think he's going to learn from whatever the hell, whether he's done the wrong thing or he hasn't. One would hope that he's going to learn from whatever has gone on, right? But there's no guarantee there, and so for me, there's too many questions with Deshaun Watson.
No, I understand he's a media, you know, spotlight with everything happening, and we don't know if it's true or not, right? But the thing is, in my opinion, if he is cleared for everything to be factual and the truth comes out and he didn't do anything wrong at all, give the man a shot. You know, now I'm saying as well, Houston Texans probably want to ship him out for a lot of high price, you know, draft capital, which may hurt the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this would be something that would shock me and surprise me for the Steelers to do, but I would still support it. I'd still be happy they did it, because the moment all our opinions would fall to dust, the moment he signed, we would be like, whoa, we got Watson? Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm right. I know, like, it would be bad.
Yeah, no, it would. No. But you know what? Like, as you were saying that, it goes back to what we've talked about a couple of times this offseason. You know, you and I were talking about this as well, I think, off air a couple of times too. And like we talked about in the context of BTSC, right? And we talked about the fact that like Dave, Jeff, you know, bad, you know, to an extent, but particularly Dave and Jeff, like they were coming through college, you know, they started the early 20s. Ben came along, they followed Ben through, they've got teenage kids now. Like, I kind of want to enjoy the ride, and like their dads did the same thing with Terry Bradshaw. I want to enjoy the ride a little bit in the next couple of years of bringing in a rookie quarterback and, you know, building the franchise. And like, and then when our kid, you know, when you and I have got kids that are, you know, between 5 and 15 years old or whatever, you know, you're like, yeah, that's the quarterback we remember when he was a rookie, and go through that process. Like, I don't know. I want to feel that hype of them drafting that day and all the rest of it. And I think that there's opportunities to do that in the next few years. Like, we talk about selling the farm, and I know the guy's like literally in high school right now. He's going to college, but like, you know, you got guys like Archie Manning the second coming through, and there's a Manning coming through in 2 years' time, man. Like, wow. You know, it's just, I don't know. For me, I don't know if I'd do it for Watson. That's all I'm saying. I think that if you're going to sell the farm as much as that, I probably want to go someone even bigger. Like, all right, you're going to be really furious about this. I would rather do it for Joey Burrow than I would for Watson. Just honestly, I would. I think he's clutch. I think he's absolutely clutch. But
I don't care if he's clutch or not. It's Joey Burrow. What the hell is Joey Burrow? Like, what kind of nickname is that? You know what? The more that I start to watch,
I love his swagger, man. I love it.
I hate his swagger. It makes me want to punch him in the head. You know, I don't condone violence, but
see, I'm more against Mike Hilton than I am Joey Burrow. That's a story for another time. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, you're gonna get me rolled up on a Sunday morning. Man, look, you can't bring in Joey Burrow. He's just got.
We're not going to anyway, mate. But it's just what I'm saying is the amount you've got to sell. But you know what's interesting is, like, I listen to you know, everyone on this show that's a regular knows I listen to it's one of the only other few podcasts I'll plug. But it's, you know, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. Been listening to him for almost a decade, which is scary to say. And Daniel Jeremiah was talking on, I think they recorded it on their Thursday, so before the criminal charges got dropped. And he basically said everyone in the league knows that Deshaun Watson's going to go after the trade. They're like, everyone in the league knows that Deshaun Watson's going to Seattle. So now, obviously, that's got to wait to happen, but they've got the picks, right? And it also makes sense because, you know, they've got a decent first round. Like, they've moved up in the first round now with a draft pick that's worth it, right? Because if you think 9, right? Now, the Texans, Sills is a decent quarterback. And we want to move on to the Steelers. But anyway, I want to say Sills is decent quarterback, and they can go get people that are going to build that franchise. So it's interesting. But look, let's get to the Steelers. That's what we're here to talk about. This is Behind the Steel Curtain. Now, Mark and I want to do something different with today's show. Everyone's on the draft picks. Everyone's on the combine. Everyone's on free agency coming up. Well, Marky D and I are like, we need a break. We're calling time relax. Yeah. So we thought, let's go back to the rookies from last year. So we're going to look at them this week, and next week we're going to look at the guys that are in year 2 that are going to year 3, just for like a different change. Obviously, there's going to be breaking news. We're going to cover that stuff like we talked about Deshaun Watson just now. But what we're going to do today is look at the rookies that were draft picks, not undrafted free agents. Otherwise, we'll be doing a show for 2 hours. I'm going to talk about how they went in 2021. What does that say about their ceiling or floor for next year? What should Steeler fans expect as a minimum? What should Steeler fans, be hopeful for? So, Marky D, let's kick it off with the first round draft pick. I'm wearing his player shirt today. For those on the audio side, Najee Harris. I always say that when there's a big run at home. I'm like, Najee. I don't think that's going to take off, but I like doing it. So there we go. Najee Harris, mate. Started 17 from 17, 1,200 yards, 7 TDs, 62 first downs. He caught 74 out of 94 pass targets for 467 yards, 3 TDs, 22 first downs. He had the second most broken tackles in the league. The first in the league was Jonathan Taylor, running back. Jonathan Taylor beat him by 1. He was third in terms of most yards after contact. 4th in the league in yards from scrimmage, 4th all-purpose yards, didn't fumble during the regular season, 4th in rushing over the course of the season, and 7th in rush yards per game. I mean, where do you go from here? That's a pretty tremendous performance in year 1.
Mate, I know you know what I'm saying, mate. Where do you go from here? He is an absolute superstar. Now, for the audio guys, I just held up a sign saying "mate." That can mean so many things, and Matty knows what that means. It pretty much means right now, everything you said is factual, and this guy is unbelievable. He's going to be so fun to watch next season and the year after. I can't wait. With the O-line as well, getting better, getting more physical, running the football, hopefully past the safety and not just 20 yards, bigger carries, and hopefully more touchdowns. I've never seen a running back like him, maybe since like how Bell played too. Bell had a bit more speed, but Najee doesn't quit.
But Bell could make people miss off the first step, but he can't truck you like Najee. That guy, man.
Najee was carrying 3 or 4 people, and sometimes like you put down your coffee, the play's over, and you went, he's still running, he's still going. He would run another 2 yards.
The amount of times you think about it on tape, like you're like, oh man, this is bad. This is a loss behind the line of scrimmage, and then suddenly Najee's popped up. Like
there was one run against, I think it was the Ravens, where he was in the backfield. He went right at the guts in the good game he had there. And he went to about the 4 or 5 yard line, and he's like low body control, pad control down, still churning his legs over, and then he fell to about the 15 yard. He got about 15 yards after that. He got 7 to 8 yards and 9 yards after that first hit, and we consistently saw that with Najee, and I'm so thankful that we signed him up, as a round 1 running back. Humble guy, great guy, funny guy too. Very funny in the media. Very, very funny.
Is, man. And it was funny, right? It was around Christmas time, and I had one of his press conferences on in the background, and my fiance was like, "He seems pretty chill," and I was like, "Yeah." And I showed her some of the interviews. She's like, "He's just having him on. He's just playing with him." It was really good.
He calls out there like a lot of their BS too, a lot of their stuff. He goes, "Why'd you ask me that question?" The favorite one I asked was that someone asked him during the preseason was like, "Oh, are you able to catch one-handed or something like that?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can catch one-handed. That's not that hard, No, I think he is going to be a leader for our locker room too. next year because he wants to win. How you saw, was it the last game, the Chief game or the Ravens game? Might have been the Ravens game in week 17 or 18 that he didn't have a very good game. That was it. Yeah, he did have a good game, but they still won, and he was still angry. He was still very angry at himself because he didn't play the way he wanted to. He's a winner. He wants to go out there and I kind of feel like he wants to win for the team, but most of all, he wants to win for himself. And that's a good quality to have. When you want to do everything and go, I can be the best for me. Oh, I'm not just doing it for my team, but I'm doing it for myself. Then you have high standards to push your limits to it every time. Well, I haven't seen a running back like him in a long time. He will get faster. He will get stronger. He will understand the schemes more. He will get better with his O-line. The O-line was like pretty bad, right? It was bad.
Pretty bad?
Oh, okay, it was really bad.
Mate, you run a hype reel on the Steeler Nation Australia that has me swearing, and yeah, that's exactly how I feel about the.
We can't do that here. We're not allowed.
We can't. But we're a family-friendly show. But I tell you what though, got me fuming was Kevin Colbert saying, "Oh, Najee knows he needs to do better next season." I'm like, no, mate, you need to do better next season. You need to provide people that are going to open up holes. Do it. It's your final year. Like, there's a few things that Kevin Colbert said, right? And like, he doesn't give a stuff what Matty Peverell down under thinks. But there's a few things that Colbert said lately that actually really tweaked me. I'm like, ugh. But look, in terms of the Najee, right? So you did the 1,200 yards, the 7 TDs. I think 62 first downs is incredible. We saw what he did there. That's crucial. He's going to have to back that up this year if the Steelers want to do anything. What do you think? Because players do have to improve. Like, I understand what Colbert's saying. Like, you can't just sit there and expect that, you're going to be able to do the same thing year on year, even if you get a great O-line, right? Like, he's still got to rock up and do it. And he's a running back, so he's got to have to try and stay healthy as well. And that's up to the Steelers to get him some backup there because he can't play that many downs again. So I'm sort of sitting there going, what's a pass mark for next year? Like, is it 10 TDs? Is it 12 TDs? Is it 1,500? Rushing yards? Is it 2,000 all-purpose yards? What's a good mark here of improvement? Because the O-line's going to get a little bit better. It'll get a little bit better, even if they had the exact same players today. It would be better just from more cohesion, right? So, and also they don't have Clem, and I don't think Clem worked out, right? So they're going to have better O-line coaching.
No, I think it's more or less it's a better average yard per carry. What I would say.
Okay. Yep.
So that needs to improve. Like, I think that was pretty low, right? Because he had
I think it was 3.4. That was the one out of all the stats that I pulled. That wasn't.
Yeah.
The average yards per attempt on rushing was 3.9.
It needs to be,
which is still incredible. Like if you run the hype reel back in your head, it's still incredible.
It's good. But I think Najee, how he can excel and really change the offense, if that was around 4.5 or 4.6, 4.7, which is pretty high. And those are the top tier running backs. And because if you're doing that, that's half the down distance. And the next minute you have a 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 6. And then you can start to run the ball from there too. But if you're getting second and 7 or also a lot of penalties too. I saw a lot of times where we're getting holding and going back 1st and 15. And Big Ben could not the offense could not counteract that. If we got a penalty last year, the offense could not counteract going back 5 yards. It was almost like we could only move the ball if we had a chance to move the ball, was at 10 yards, and we had a sequence of events from 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and that was it. The moment we went back, that drive was over. So I'm excited to actually bring in a new quarterback, if it is Mason or whoever, right? I'm excited to try and move this football. I know I say it a lot in a lot of podcasts, but we just have not seen that happen. We got 20 points average the whole season. Najee went out there and worked his butt off, right? But he was the only one, him and Muth, we'll talk about him next, but he was the only one, they were trying the hardest. DJ tried a little bit. Claypool fell asleep. Ray was running his routes and he'd turn around and go, oh, no, it's me. And he'd catch it, because he was the fourth guy. And I don't know if he's going to come back, but for Najee to improve, I think it's getting that average up. I think the first year, it probably doesn't, I'm not a running back, but I would say any first year, any job, you're kind of like, oh, what am I meant to do here? So he'll get better and better and better. He'll read the right reads, the right holes. He'll learn how to take care of his body, which I think he did anyway last year. I thought he went pretty well.
It's a good point. Like, and this is the thing that I apart from the O-line, you got to go back to that common notion that's talked about, which is that, for a draft pick, they play a full college season. If they're in a top college like he was at Bama, they go through the college football playoff. Then they go straight into the draft process and combines and pro days. And then they get drafted. And then they go to OTAs. And they have a couple of weeks off. And then they go to summer camp. And they go into a season. And then for Najee, he goes into a season which has got 17 games. And the Steelers make the playoffs. And he's a running back, which is like one of the biggest workhorse positions with the most amount of snaps. The guy didn't miss a game. That's a massive workload. That's a huge workload.
Also, having an off season too with the Steelers, having a bit of time off to reflect. Going into his second year, I know that he wants to get better because they didn't win a playoff game, and that to me is the big thing. This team needs to win a playoff game, otherwise we are turning into maybe a really bad franchise because we can't do it at the moment, right? So Najee he helps us. He helps us 100%. He will get better.
I was going to say, I brought up Snowman's super chat. Do you think, what about this stat line? That's 100 yards less per rush, but 800 yards receiving, a lot more short yardage in passing. Do you think he becomes a bit of a target like that for Mason?
I don't know if he's really a part. He can be a pass catcher, right? I would rather.
He can. When he was coming out, one of the slights that I had on him was that I didn't feel that was the strongest part of his game, which is why I like Javonte. I thought Javonte Williams might have been a better fit. But having said that, Najee surpassed all my expectations because you know me, I don't believe running back in round one. The only reason I think I like it with Najee is that he's a little bit older and you get the 5 years, then you franchise tag him, you get the 6 years, and then if he's prepared to be team friendly, great, right? And that's I guess the hope when it comes to Najee Harris. But there's guys you get in the third round that are great running backs. That's the thing for me is that when you talk about the pass catcher, you wonder how they're going to use Freiermuth in the short passing game. You wonder how they're going to do jet sweeps, which are going to open up Najee. You wonder if they bring in a decent second, or pass catching running back that then, can get Najee open. These are all the sorts of things. They bring in someone like a Connor Haywood, which then distracts the defense, to the draft. But I guess for me, I don't think he could possibly catch any more. I think if he's getting more than 94 targets, I think we've got a real problem again. I think, you don't want him taking more than 94 targets. The long runs, I think that was talked about in the live chat, and it's one that you and I kept talking about all season, like we did with McFarlane. You just wanted to see him break a long one. I think that if he can break long ones, that will tell you that the O-line's improved. I think the stat line is one thing. But
just one last thing, Matty. I don't want to say one last thing about Najee.
Of course. No, I was going to throw to you anyway.
Big Ben, looking back at it, kind of held the Steelers back, right? Because
the defense held them back.
Yes. The defense knew what was going to happen pretty much all the time, right? Because Big Ben wasn't mobile and it was his last year. I think, looking back at it now, all the fans we knew you couldn't bench him because you couldn't do that to Ben after 18 years. So with even whatever quarterback goes in there, if it's Haskins, Rudolph, or whoever, it's going to improve the offense just because of the surprise. It should be more of a surprise to work in Najee and to work in other people. Play action pass. Ben couldn't play action pass anymore. He was, I think, even to a certain degree, near the end of looking at it, he was a bit lazy because he didn't even want to run. He didn't want to run anywhere. Even Tom Brady could still run around. He was pretty much moving the offense and saying, I'm going this direction. That's my first read. Bam, not there. How many times did we see him throw to DJ where it was triple covered? And you're like, what? How? What are you doing? So I think with a new quarterback, if it's Rudolph, if it's Haskins, if it's Watson, or if it's Malik Willis, whoever, it would open up the game plan, and it's going to be exciting to see. This is to be the big year to judge Canada without Ben. So life without Ben, it's been so different, hasn't it? Even the speculation with the QBs, but who's going to be, who's going to hand off to Najee? We don't know. But whoever does, it's going to be, oh, mate, he's going for it. I'm telling you.
Mate, so it's funny with Big Ben. I pulled up PFF do a quarterback annual document. And it's not just their grades. It's like actual just pure stats. And like Ben, top targets in key situations. Deontay Johnson on third down, top wide receiver, 48 targets. Under pressure, Deontay Johnson, 22 targets. Versus the blitz, Deontay Johnson, 42 targets. In the red zone, Deontay Johnson, 22 targets.
Yeah.
But then you look at like the position rankings and you look at like how much he threw under 2.5 seconds. And the Steelers, this has been going on for 6 or 7 years. Like, yes, Ben had the 5,000 yarder, he had the injury, all the rest of it. But if you actually go through the last 6 or 7 seasons, like this deep, like, if you're an opposing team against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can look up a lot of stuff in the last few years and you'll know exactly what's going to happen. Like it's been a miracle that we've won as many games as we have. All right, well, let's flick over to my man. Made me a bit of cash last year when he got drafted, Pat Freiermuth. He caught 60 from 79, so that was a pass catching rate of 75.9%.
Good.
497 yards, which is slightly on the low side, but, that's up. It's really, again, what we just talked about there at the quarterback. He gained 34 first downs. He had 1 fumble, which really cost us probably against the Lions and probably cost us maybe even going to the second round of the playoffs if we didn't have to play against the Chiefs. Started 9 out of 16 games, but as a tight end, it depends what set that they're in. Yards per reception average of 8.3. He was 9th in the league in terms of PFF grade for tight ends. 22nd in snaps, 8th in his receiving grade, 3rd in his pass block grade. He was outside the top 50 for run blocking, but I don't take any stock in that from a PFF perspective. Pat Freiermuth, I mean, what's the ceiling for him? What do you expect his stat line to be in 2022? And where's the floor, I guess?
Well, you just kind of took my point as well because, Big Ben couldn't really get him the football that much, right? But he's still got, 7 TDs you said last year?
He had
7 or 8.
He had 7, I think. Let me pull that
up.
I
think he had 7. I'm glad we have him as well. He's our new tight end or our new number 1.
7. He had 7.
I think we're all in agreement that Eric Ebron won't be there as a Steeler. I think also behind him, Gentry's doing a little bit better to be number 2, and those two fellas can block pretty well. Now, also, number 3 might even be Radar unless we bring someone in or draft someone else, but he's also a pretty big unit. Those fellas are all about the same size, 6'8", 6'5". But for Muth, I can see him very, very similar. The offense should get hopefully more creative because it's been so bland. And that could be a Ben problem. It really could be a Ben problem. Now that it's been that way. Is. Well, there you go. Look, I know it's hard for me to say. It's just.
I know it is, and it's not disrespectful. It's just like the game moves. The game,
Well, okay. If it is for the last 2 years, because we knew watching the game, you're like, oh, that handoff's going to Juju for sure.
But you kind of wonder, in some ways, like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but should they have kept Randy for another year and then let Canada wait for the quarterback that he wants to go, wait for a quarterback to fit the system? But then they probably would have lost Canada anyway. I don't want to go into the hypotheticals, but
it could have been a simple answer where Ben was just running the show and he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he thought that was the best way to win. However, the game is changing, and the offensive coordinator didn't get enough say in there, and the receivers are like, well, we haven't got too much say either. It's Big Ben, so we just got to follow his plan. And a lot of times I saw these receivers last year just kind of jog to their route and stand there. But in the old days, they used to break down and run around and try and get the football and catch the ball. There might have been a little bit of passion missing. It's like, he was the leader and the veteran in the locker room, but he wanted to do it his way, right? So bringing someone else in at quarterback will be interesting to see how they can work with the offensive coordinator. And as for Muth, I hope he can go out there and get us consistent first downs and start to block for Najee. I don't think he's going to go backwards at all. I think he's going to only get better.
I think as well. I think even if you got Mason there, I think you look at Mason Rudolph and where he's going to go and where he's going to pass to, and you look at how much rookie quarterbacks use tight ends. It's hard to think that they wouldn't actually target Muth more. But Muth needs more yardage. I need a minimum 650 yards from him next season. right? I think, and that will speak to what Canada is going to do, but they need to unlock what Freiermuth offers them. I think, he can make those clutch catches. He goes up into traffic and gets it. Claypool doesn't. They've got to find ways. And that's why I think as well, this is a very, very deep draft class in terms of tight end. And they're going to be available really late as well. I reckon you trade back in if there's one of the guys that you kind of like and he's sitting there, like a Loudermilk trade, like where you trade a 4th or a 5th to jump in back in the 5th or the 6th round. I think that helps you out. There's massive dudes like Jelani Woods, which would fit the profile, who can catch the ball. I don't want to go into draft guys now, but I think you need someone there you can put on the field besides Gentry. And I think Gentry showed some stuff. I don't trust Raider in the receiving part, but you need someone on the field that is a distraction in 2 tight end sets for the defense that allows Freiermuth to get open and do a bit more. So, I just think I love Pat Freiermuth. I'm just excited about him. I think, if Najee can get 94 targets off a short passing game, we know Big Ben was kind of wanting to throw to him. I want to see more. I want to see more in the intermediate passing game from Pat Freiermuth as well. You'd love for that reception, the average yards per reception to be even higher, or at least some more 20 plus yards catches. Yeah.
What about the passes you just see that that little curl route, or that goes like 8-9 yards and that? Like, I think what happened with Big Ben last year as well. He every time we got to 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 3, he went deep. And I think even having a rookie quarterback or a new quarterback in this system, they're not going to I think Ben wanted to make the big plays all the time like he did, right? Because sometimes you wanted to get the first down, and we will gamble for it, and it didn't happen. Now, if it's 3rd and 4 and you have moved there, you want to complete that 3rd down at least. So you're gonna design a route to complete that 3rd down. And I think that's what you might see with this more of a balanced and a bit more creative offense. A bit more not as like, hey Ben, go win us the game, because that's what his mentality was the whole time.
Yeah, and that's it. And when you look at the Steelers passing into the middle of the field, like Jeffrey Bennick talked about this. I think he's done some articles on it. He's talked about this on his, he's talked about this on the cutting room floor. It's something that I always look at with college quarterbacks as well. I talked a lot about this early on in the season when I was comparing Kenny Pickett with Wake Forest Sam Hartman, who chose to stay back, who's an interesting prospect in the middle rounds next year in the draft. But it talks about the fact that, veteran quarterbacks prefer not to throw in the middle of the field. They know that's where the interceptions happen. For me, if you're going to go with Mason, and I think in all the images that roll in my head of Dwayne Haskins, he more throws those routes that are running, toward the sideline. But I think for me, if you've got Mason, you've got Freiermuth in the middle. I'm okay with a few interceptions where we're throwing it to get into the middle of the field in the intermediate passing games down the seam. I'm okay with that. With a guy like Pat Freiermuth and those 50-50 balls, I think he's going to catch. I think it's going to be more 60-40. If they're the things that are going to get us down the field, great. This is the one thing that would frustrate me, regardless of the quarterback, but particularly even if they are thinking they're going to go with Mason, is living in the fears. You got to play properly. We can't just play, we're going to grab 3 yards here and we're going to grab 4 yards there and we're going to go near the sideline and maybe they'll break the tackle and just get the first down. Like, I don't want any of that. I want, we talked about this season. Lives for, can you hear me?
And we're back.
What was the last thing you heard?
G'day, welcome to Steelers Touchdown Under.
Sorry about that. I think my internet had an interruption. Everything went haywire. What was the last thing you heard? I want to continue my rant.
I honestly don't know. You just turned into Mr. Roboto,
Okay. Well, what I was basically saying was we talked a lot throughout the season as Steeler fans, on BTSC, and people commented on it in, different, live chats and stuff like that. That it just, when you watch other teams, the offense and the passing games feels really fluid. With us, it feels like it's just like maybe, and then not, and then it's stalling, and then it's just, every time they throw the ball, you're like, are they going to do anything?
Okay. You said to me how bad the offense was. It was bad. It was really bad. The offense like stinks. Like it's stunk for the last 2 years. It's been horrible to watch. It's been like
Stunk since Haley left, man.
every single time we turn on the game, you almost want to give them the football straight away because we know we're not going to do anything with it. And last season in 2021, it took 3 quarters to try to score points. Now, the more I think about it, and maybe we could have done a show on Big Ben, because the more I think about it, it probably was Big Ben. Because how many times did he throw it to the sideline to Najee or to Juju or whoever, DJ, and it wasn't there. It just what the play was not there. He was playing on paper pretty much a lot of the time, whereas you need a football player to go out there and play on the field and actually see and feel what is happening in the game. Not saying that one part, it still irks me to this day. That one pass to Najee, it was against the Bengals, and like he had 5 crashing down on him on 4th and 10. That was our offense last year. Now we still got to the playoffs. We got there because of the defense. We need to run the football. We need Muth to I think start to block, and he'll get better. Both Muth and Najee will get better.
Yeah, and look, Ben drew up plays in the dirt that got them, to win, games in the fourth quarter comeback. Yes, so it's not Bladen's fault, no. But yeah, there's the fluidity in this. They shouldn't have been in the position where they had to have those comebacks, is what I'm saying. But there was just not a lot of fluidity. All right, let's move to 2 middle round picks, Kendrick Green and Dan Moore Jr. Now, Kendrick Green is the one that a lot of people are like, oh my God, got to get rid of him. No one can ever have a bad rookie year. No one can ever, doesn't matter that, he was a 3rd round draft pick. Everyone expects him to be Creed Humphrey. Everyone else's ceiling is, like the Empire State Building tall on Kendrick Green, and poor Kendrick Green's just sitting there going, I'm in a 5-story shopping center. Thanks. Like, just give me a break. Right. He started 15 from 15 games that he played in, 977 snaps, 6 penalties, 4 of them were holding, played 76% of the offensive snaps for the season. Dan Moore Jr. started 16 out of the 16 games he played, 1080 snaps. That's 99% of the Steelers' offensive snaps, 5 penalties, which were 3 holding, 2 false starts. He was first in terms of drafted left tackles in snaps, which is incredible when you think about guys like Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell. I talked about that a lot on War Room this season. But, those 2 guys, let's start with Green first. What's your feeling for them, in terms of what they do in 2022?
With Green, I need to see more. Yeah. I just want to see what's happening. Now, this is my least.
You need to see Dan Moore?
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there. It's my least, I guess, position that I look at and go, what is actually happening? It's so hard for me to analyze or judge because I just don't know. Yeah. But I guess when you look at the stats, the running game was terrible, right? 30 seconds. Offensive line broke down. Communications broke down. This unit of the offensive line doesn't really know each other just yet. They're pretty much brand new. Dotson was out, but I think like with Green being there, it's hard to. Surely it must be hard to go into a center role, being a year 1 starter rookie, and you're snapping the football to Big Ben. So a lot of pressure, but I think you have to at some point, go let go of the stigmas and just be like, hang on, I'm in this team for a reason. I need to go out there and excel. You can't use any excuses for me. So with Green, I need to see more of him. Now Dan Moore, he's all he played pretty well last year from some of the articles I read that the BTSC was talking about, and what you talked about him too, and what I saw last year. I like the way that him and Dotson both worked together. I like the way how physical he was too. But same thing. It's I don't know when the last time we started 2 rookies on the O-line. Like that was just this might have been one of our best years of starting rookies in general, to be honest.
Well, and the good thing is what like Shannon brought up on the show last week, where he talked about the fact that left tackles cost a lot of money, and we got Dan Moore in the 4th round. Like if he comes off, like that's pretty good, right? Like so, and I think with Green too, you got to remember like. People are allowed to have a bad year. Like, look at DeMonte Dawson, right? Like, look what they did with him. Like, I think even if he's a backup piece, a third rounder with a backup piece that can play guard and can play center, which is probably a backup center. Not the worst thing in the world. Like, it's not a dud pick at this point in time. It's just, as Steelers fans, we've had 4 decades almost of great center play. And so you sit there and you're like, well, of course he's terrible. Okay, well,
And you have to blame somebody. That's what a lot of we do it this in instinct.
Great point.
You need to blame somebody with the running game. You can't say the running game stinks and then not blame anyone. So who are you going to blame? The center.
Exactly. Well, Sean Manahan puts $5 in the tip jar of the super chat. And Sean Manahan says, first through third quarter, our passing game sucked. Fourth quarter last year, it came to life and the difference was glaring. Well, as you shared that, Sean, the Steelers last year were 24th in the league for quarter points per game in the third quarter. There you go. So that's kind of an interesting sort of perspective. And that got better down the stretch, but that's kind of where it was sitting. Versus, I think in 2020, I think it was like 5 points, but just pulling that stat up there. Well, 18. Yeah, it was 4.8 points. Yeah.
We played so well in the fourth quarter. You kind of wish it did happen in the first quarter because every single year, every single game was like we just went flat. Now we did win that Buffalo game, which was quite amazing to happen. That was a punt block too, but we just I don't know what it was. It was very hard to watch.
Well, so to back Sean Manahan's point up, Sean Manahan with the comment of the week, I think. I dare the live chat to do better. I say that because the fourth quarter offense was 9.8 points. So literally there's like, how can you score like no points in so many games? The Steelers, I think, averaged, what was it, like 19 points? I'm going to pull it up. Yet then you can go into the fourth quarter and nab 10 points almost average per game. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Are we counting Sean Manahan's comment of the week just because it's a super chat? Because if so, he's the only one and he's winning. He's winning. He's winning by default. You know?
No, I just think it was a good comment. Like I just, like I'm just trying to look up exactly what the points per game was. But I just I think that's incredible. That's a great stat.
He's right though, because we did absolutely nothing in the first half and we're always down. And it was like, how do you go out there? Like my idea was the whole week you train for this, you get prepared for this, and you just go out and lay a duck egg and nothing happens. And that needs to change. That will hopefully change with the offense, with these fellas getting better with Green and more. And hopefully whoever our quarterback is, something needs to happen where we go out and get at least 3 points and then the defense can start to come alive. A bit like in the old days where, we were up scoring points and relying on our defense to get that margin from about 10 to 14. We never really had that. The games we had that, I think it was the Broncos were up by a little bit and they ended up coming back anyway. And we won by 7. So, yeah.
Well,
it needs to change.
Yeah. And look, it's funny because the Steelers had 9 out of the 18 games where they scored less than 20 points. So if you think about that, 10 points coming in the fourth quarter, really? You're not even settling for a field goal per quarter at that average. It's just unbelievable. There is talk in the live chat as well. I think Owen brought up first that Mollette's been re-signed. I have pulled that up. That is per Ian Rappaport as well. They haven't put a number. Apparently the deal looks pretty similar though to the Killebrew deal. That's what the expectation is there. So that's some interesting breaking news. Mark, before we get to a couple of the other players I want to cover off, do you like that with Mollett? I thought he was a decent depth piece, but I hope $4 million's expensive, but I mean, he is a veteran, so.
He also came in last year too, right? So it was the first year with the Steelers in 2021. Give him another shot. He did okay. I didn't really see him make too many splash plays on the defense, but I think he'll do more work too on special teams. I think he's still there as well.
Yep.
So he's a veteran guy. There has to be a reason why they like him, and maybe he can I don't know if they keep Marcus Allen and those kind of guys too.
Please no. Don't say that name. No, Marcus Allen. No, Marcus Allen. No, Marcus Allen.
We aren't making the big free agent plays, but we kind of do this every single year, really. We go out and sign that guy and people go, who? Who's that? But we know who he is. But a lot of other fans be like, who is that? Who's Mullet? It's okay. If he can help us on the defense, help us on special teams, why not? Why not bring in that leadership too? He's been, I think, playing for 7 years now, 6 years, something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
All right. Well, the next couple of draft picks were Presley Harvin the third, Trey Norwood, Loudermilk. Let's go through Big Press quickly because Corliss Waitman did all right. The Big Press played in 15 games, 2 kickoffs, which nothing really to note there. 70 punts for 2,982 yards. 64 was his long, average of 42.6, which is 33rd in the league. Right, so technically on an average, that makes him outside a starting role in the league, but obviously had a lot more punts. He was 8th in the league with 70 punts. Thoughts on Big Press? I don't really want to talk about punters too much, but, I think he deserves a second year. I'm not sitting here going, this is the punter for the Steelers this is the next franchise punter, but,
Yeah, he's all right. It's funny because I looked on Instagram today and I saw I still follow Jordan Berry for some reason. I think I was trying to get him on my show. And
he had a good year last year, but all the crap that everyone gave him, man, he had a good year.
He never responded to me though. I said, "Man, I'm Australian. You're Australian. You're a Steeler." He never responded to me. I guess like the high price of fame doesn't talk to the little blokes. Yeah. Anyways, I saw him on there. And
I wouldn't invite him to a barbecue.
Well, I wouldn't give him a beer. Nah, I'd probably give him a beer.
He was fourth, mate. He was 4th in the league for the longest punt last year with 78 yards.
Yeah, well,
he was top 5 for overall punting yards.
Well, I saw a comment from one Steeler fan on his, he's at the beach somewhere in Florida. I don't know where he's at, and they were saying, "Come back to Pittsburgh." So I don't know if he's going to come back or not, but. I
saw Brad Wing on Twitter Friday. Brad Wing was tweeting out some stuff as if he was going to make a comeback. And I thought, what are you doing? But I couldn't believe that he's made like $4 million in his career. Like, it's just.
I wouldn't. That's one bloke I wouldn't buy a beer. He just irks me. He's like Joe Brewer. Just don't like him. So if you hear this, Brad Wing, I'm coming for your job. No, I'm done.
But he's still young. Like he like out of the league quite early. Like I think he's like 6 months younger than me, but that's pretty young.
Yeah, but he's got a higher ego than AB.
I know. Do you know he's the first Australian in the NFL to throw a touchdown?
Who was Brad Wing?
Yeah.
Yeah, no one knows. We're the only 2 podcasts in the world who talk about it. No one else knows about Brad Wing. See what happens when we talk about punters? It's haywire. All right.
I know.
Harvin, give him a shot. It's not that big of a deal. If he's that bad.
But you got to bring back someone. Like, I think Corliss Waitman got signed by the Broncos, I think. But you got to bring someone to compete with him.
Oh, big time. Competition is key. I think, if Harvin will play next year, I think just got to work on, this is hard to say because this is not fun to talk about, but work on maybe the depth of the ball in the air and how high it goes. I don't know.
I agree. Well, Pat McAfee was talking about him with Cam Hayward. It came up in that interview, and he said, Harvin needs to probably drop a bit of weight too. He's like, I get the whole big press, but like he was basically like, not that Pat McAfee called him big press, and then Jeff really would be going viral. But no, like he basically said like he needs to clean up a little bit. He said he said when I started out my career, I was like big press, ate whatever I liked, did whatever I liked. But he goes, if you want to be in that top echelon, you've got to like. So that's something to factor in there. Trey Norwood. I want to talk about Norwood for a little bit. I mean, Loudermilk, we can talk about that quickly, but Trey Norwood started 3 out of 17 games, 4 pass defense, 1 interception, 2 tackles for a loss, 388 snaps, which is 33% of defensive snaps. He also played 41% of special team snaps, 38 tackles, 32 of those were solo. Pretty incredible for a 7th round draft pick.
Yes. And he came out firing, I think, in the Bills game. And we're like, wow, we have something here. We have the next Troy. And then he all went back into...
How am I next Troy?
That's what I was thinking. And then we went back into, the 7th rounder kind of style. Like, he played pretty well, though. There was a few tackles that nobody wanted to tackle. I think it was the Bills. And he was, like, making short tackles and came up to the line.
I like how he tackles low at the ankles as well. Like, he doesn't try and gets up high.
Really well. Really well.
And he dropped several interceptions that he could have got. Like even in one of the practice squad games, even in one of the preseason games.
Imagine that.
That's what I'm going to start calling him now. That's this season coming up. It's not going to be called the preseason games. It's called the practice squad.
Well, you want to have 90 versus 90 on the field, do you?
So the practice squad games. That's like Sackle. If if we go back to the original days. But yeah, so like even there, with Norwood though, there was several times this season where there were dropped interceptions. There even the Chiefs game in the playoffs, there was 2, wasn't there, where he like almost got those interceptions.
Yeah, and he will learn from that too. I found like he played really well at the start, and then he went missing during the season. But that's the identity of a 7th rounder, and maybe even the way he was using with Arthur Millette coming in. I think even with Pierre, and if you played a bit of corner too sometimes. But I do know he got burnt a little bit. But that's just not understanding the defense in your first year and being a 7th rounder. You just don't know the defense just yet. And even for a certain extent, how do you shut things down when the middle of the field is just being, run through the middle with 140 yards average running? So if you start to condense that front 7 can be lights out and locked down, then it doesn't really matter what kind of corners you have because once you shut down the run, then the pass is going to be open. I think it's going to be TJ Show and Highsmith Show to really pressure the quarterback for anyone to make those picks, right? So it's a lot of pressure on Trey Norwood in this season too, but even last season being a 7th round pick. I was so excited to see him play in the first game. I was like, this guy's pretty good. And then he kind of like just went in average.
Yeah, I think he had a bumpy ride. I think they asked a lot from him. I think there was parts in the middle season where they overcomplicated it for him. And I think he struggled with that when he was doing some of the corner stuff and he came in with the different injuries. Like, the cornerbacks was a bit all over the place last year, right? In terms of, the consistency and what we talk about, fluidity. So that makes it hard for a guy like Trey Norwood. And, he talks about how powerful Minka was. But I agree with what Clarence is saying. Like, you give him, and it's what you said, Mark, you give him a full offseason to learn the defense, right? Terrell Austin, is now the defensive coordinator. Obviously, Terrell Austin's worked with him. You bring in the way the positioning works and you got to remember, like Mike Tomlin was instrumental in creating the Tampa defense back at Tampa Bay. He's a defensive backs coach by trade, really. I mean, even though he started out as a wide receivers coach. Like, if Norwood's going to have a chance on any team, it's going to be with like the Steelers. And I just remember the comments that Tomlin made coming out of the draft in the post-draft press conferences. And like, it just sounded like he's like, this guy's a Swiss Army knife. We can work with him. We can do things. And yeah, I think Norwood is a really exciting prospect for us to watch. And the great thing about Norwood too is he's only 22, right? So he's going to sit out this rookie contract 3 or 4 years. Then he gets 25, 26, pay him a little bit more than, a little bit over the market worth if we can. Keep him around. This guy is one of those guys that you build a friend. This is one of the guys that you see with a Super Bowl team that's been there for 5 or 6 years. Not the best player on the team, but can fill things, knows the team, reliable when he needs to if he's got to start a few games. But if you were a 7th round draft pick, hybrid sort of safety cornerback, and you get told you're going to play, 33% of the defensive snaps for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to be pretty happy with that.
Well, some 7th rounders don't even make the team for 2 years or not even make the team at all. So, yeah, I would be happy.
Well, let's go to Loudermilk. I'm a bit upset as I say it that we don't get to talk about Quincy Roche. I loved Quincy Roche, one of the first players I ever previewed when Cap Room went to War Room last season. We all know where he ended up. Owen brought him up before in the live chat, Pittsburgh Owen. But Loudermilk started 2 out of 15 games, 3 pass defenses, 1 sack, 23 tackles, 3 missed tackles there for 11% missed tackle rate, 288 snaps on the defense, which was 24%, I think, of the overall defensive snaps. Any thoughts on Loudermilk, just quickly, before we get into a little bit of Q&A?
Well, just one quick thing. Where did Roche end up going? I forget.
To New York. And he had he played pretty well for them. Yeah. He went to the Giants.
Really? The old Big Blue. Right?
The old Big Blue. Yeah.
Okay, so we can't talk about him, I guess.
Well, we can. I think it's missed. Actually, I'm going to make a point of this. Everyone was all, Jameer Jones. And remember, I was like, Quincy Roche. And look, Jameer Jones has done nothing. And Quincy Roche, 2.5 sacks, 38 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, 5 quarterback hits, 1 forced fumble in 3 games that he played. Started for the Giants out of 14. He played almost 50%. He played 42% of their defensive snaps. So
I was one of those people talking about Jameer Jones, but I think my opinion counts for nothing because I just compared Trey Norwood to Troy Polamalu. So But I was so excited, man. I was like, this guy, Jameer Jones, is going off every single play.
Oh,
like,
Quincy Roche has the proven college production.
I
kept
know,
saying this to people.
I understand that. But when you watch those preseason games, you haven't seen football for so long.
There's not preseason. It's called the practice squad. And that's where he ended up, on the practice squad.
I know. But when you're watching, you're like, yeah, sign him up for a 5-year contract, get him going, because you're like, this guy is really good, and then nothing. But who are we talking about? Roche or the other one?
Well, that was Roche, but we need to wrap up on Loudermilk.
All right. I thought he played.
And audience,
okay.
as Mark finishes on Loudermilk, get a couple of questions ready. We've got about 5 minutes. We can answer a couple of quick questions.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I didn't see him play too much, really. The defense in the middle was pretty horrible because there was no Alualu, there was no Tuit, and hopefully that changes. Another guy going to his second year, it's kind of fun to see what can happen. And I want to see him get a few sackles, a few tackle for loss. Yeah, you've got to start to learn behind the guys like Cam and Tuit and those guys and Lulu there. So what better place to be a defensive end or tackle in the Steelers? Where else would you want to be, to be honest? 100%. Where else would you want to be?
That's a good point. What's a pass mark for him for next year? What's a pass mark? It's hard. You can't really put a tackle count on when the position he plays. Like, what do you think it's a pass mark for him?
Just, I guess, maybe not make too many errors, or don't let the. I don't want to see this running game go any worse than we saw it. Like, I really don't want to see, if we are 32 in the league again, or whatever we were. Oh boy, 144 yards per game. That's a lot. Like, we got burnt every time, and it changed the whole outlook of the defense. So, just compete. Like, I think if you compete behind Tuit, Alualu, and Cam and those guys, I think you have a good chance. You have a good, we will have a good front seven. Whoever's going to be a middle linebacker, if we go through the draft or if we go free agent, we will have one of the best front sevens if everyone's healthy.
Yeah.
And in comparison, could be like 2008.
So, yeah, love it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps up our look ahead to the rookies from this 2021 draft class and what they're going to do in year two. As I said, next week we're going to look at the year two players going to year three. We just want to give everyone, and of course we'll cover off some of the, our reactions to the free agents. But I think there's a few questions. Oh yeah, Mark. Yeah.
Are we doing this every week so we look into the year 9 players going into year 10? Is that how far we're going?
If you want to. There's no year 9 and going into year 10 players that have drafted by the Steelers, though.
Yeah, I'm only joking.
That's all right, we can do that. Can review the players that have been retired for 10 years. How their retirement going? I'm gonna have a look live chat. Any questions? Chad Me Boy asks on YouTube, any opinions on a free agent corner? Is there anyone in free agency, Mark, that you're sitting?
Who's that? You know what? I don't know. I don't know. Understand the contract to get him, but go out and get JC Jackson. He is fire.
I want Dante Jackson. I don't want JC Jackson.
JC's, man, he got like 10 picks in the other year. Like he just knows how to play the position. I think we need someone, because if we're gonna, do we sign Joe Hayden? I don't know. If we don't sign Joe Hayden, we need the corner. We've
got too many team needs to pay the money to Hayden for what he's.
But we're pretty weak at that position too. So we're pretty weak there. It just seems like a very odd position. I think our safeties are set. I think our D line is set. Our linebackers are getting better. And it's like middle linebacker and corner are like, ooh, who's there?
That's it. That's it.
So I go JC if he was going to come in.
All right. Well, in the absence of another question, I'm going to finish it with a question. Juju Smith-Schuster, bring him back. If to bring him back, how much would you be prepared to pay him?
Well, I think there was was there signs of like 10 million or 11 million or something like that for are they going to sign into a big contract or another prove it year deal? Because if they do a prove it year deal, maybe honestly don't understand a lot to do with the cap. It all goes over my head.
Yeah. But just what would you feel comfortable with?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I really don't think he's going to come back. To be honest, I think he'll go and chase the money. So I don't know.
Yeah.
To be honest, I got this last year, the year before. We was going on TikTok and he was doing the dances and he was doing.
Yeah, hated on him. You hated on him.
We're mates now. We're mates now. We're mates.
Misjudged his character.
We're mates now. But it was all like he was playing Fortnite and he was doing like he was like wearing Miami Dolphin gear, and I'm like, oh no, what are you doing? I don't know. I just think that I think other teams in this league, how crazy it's going now, he will get a big offer from another team.
Yeah. Snowman, $5 in the tip jar says, which wide receivers did the Seals sign? Because we have 3 unrestricted free agents. Look, I think Mark and I do want to see Juju come back. I think
100%. 100% we do.
I think there's guys like DJ Chalk, which if they're cheap, you go out and you look at them. Even Rashad Higgins, ex-Browns, if he's cheap, I think you have a look at him. I think they're going to draft someone in the second, third round. I've said if there's a guy available in the first and you can really good guy and you believe in him, get him on the 5-year deal. If he's young, just do it. Like you'll be saving money over the long term. Particularly then you can tag him in year 6. So I think that's a really key thing to do.
Can we cut Claypool and sign him again so he's got a fresh start, so he's like brand new?
I just think trade him. I think you try and trade Claypool for a second, and then you go out and you have an extra second round draft pick, and you bring someone in, like because he can't high point the ball. Like I don't get it. And then Justin Benjamin says, "Who do you guys think will be the QB starter?"
It's a whole show. We haven't got time.
Well, that's Mark's answer. That's Mark's Dave answer. My Dave answer is, well, actually, no, it's not really Dave answer. I don't think that the Steelers will have the same quarterback starter that they start with in week 1, right? So even if they bring in a guy to compete with Mason or they bring in a draft pick, I don't think any quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers plays more than 9 to 10 games out of the 17 regular season.
I agree with you. It's my view right now is it's Mason Rudolph, and he'll probably play. He won't play the whole 17. No way. No way.
No. That's right. He's probably going to get hit in the helmet in one game at some point. So you
never know.
You never know. Well, with that wraps up this week's Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell, as always, with Marky D. Marky D, close out the show.
Go Steelers!